Good evening, and welcome to Facebook Live with myself, Ruth, from Top Schools. It says my name right there. So, welcome. Thank you for joining me live. If you are live, you have the benefit of being able to ask me any questions live, ask me anything about Hong Kong schools, international style schools, or UK independent schools as well. You can ask me other stuff too, but just can't promise that I'll answer. So we're talking Hong Kong and UK schools. Ask me anything. If you have questions, we are live on Facebook in various places, on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So I should see the comments coming in, but I might not see your name. So do bear with me if that happens. So what have you been up to this week? What is causing you concerns, frustration when it comes to Hong Kong school admissions or UK school admissions? It's a funny time of the year. I've said this over the last few months. It's still a funny time of the year where lots and lots of people sort of sitting on wait lists, on multiple wait lists. And I know that it's frustrating and it's an anxious time. This is probably my 14th year doing it. So I understand how uncomfortable it can be, but believe me, things do happen in April, May, and June. It's already finished April, we're already into May. So how's your May? I was at ISF this morning, really interesting visit. Yeah, it's good. I need to get out to the schools every so often. So I try to go to all of the major schools like once every 18 months or 2 years. Things do change. Definitely changes with leadership often makes a very big difference in terms of how things are running. And yeah, it's always interesting. So I've got a couple more school visits next week, and then the rest will be in sort of September, October. What schools would you like me to visit? What would you like me to ask them on your behalf? So if you have any questions, post your comments or questions below. And if you don't have any, then I'll waffle on for a little bit longer. There was a lady that just posted in Facebook just a moment ago. Shall I answer that one first while you guys warm up? And let me just copy and paste her question. I don't know if she's here. It's Elena. Okay, let me post that in the comments and then I'll be able to share it on the screen. So, there she's already. Oh, there I can see all your questions. Sorry, there was a little bit of a delay. Great. All right, let me take the questions. Or has it my question come up on the same platform all of the times? Right, here we go. This was the question. Can you still see me? Look, first of all, everybody's new to this school system when they do it for the first time for their first child. It's okay. It's okay to be naive. It's just that it is quite complicated, and that's why I'm here. So apparently, ESF has a waiting list for all island schools, and it's not possible to enroll my now year one daughter. So does that mean that you are looking for year two entry in 2024? That's not exactly the case. I think that it's very late to be looking for a space in 2024 now, but I'm doing it every day. I've got families who are coming in from other countries. I've got families who are in local schools who have literally just decided it's not going to work for them. They didn't get the secondary one at they didn't get the discretionary places for secondary one, and they don't want to leave it to chance for the lottery. Actually, year 8 is a pain. Please don't apply for year 8 if you are not there yet. So ESF might be tough. It might be a little bit, depends on your profile. It really does depend on your profile. And what other options do you have? You've checked Korean International, DSC or YMCA. Yes, it is definitely possible to get a spot in any of them. But when you're asking such broad general questions as you go into next about how the academics and the students, that really, you need to do your own research. You need to, I think that what's happening here is I'll just take that off the screen. What's happening here is that, again, at this time of year, parents start to get a little bit desperate. I think it's not. It's fair to say that, you know, a little bit of desperation starts to creep in, and that's a bad thing. That's a bad thing if you don't have the knowledge, if you are naive about the whole system, because when you're desperate, parents, me, we all tend to make um, we don't make the best decisions. So I would say, can you settle down and can you wait for one more year? Do you absolutely definitely need that place for September 2024? Or could you just take your time, slow everything down, and be able to make better decisions? So that would be my first suggestion. If you are genuinely desperate, of course, I'd be happy to help you to find those places, because if they exist, I guarantee you that I can find them. Um, and you know, whether they exist or not, they might exist for one child but not exist for the other child, right? So it's all about fit. If you've read my stuff, if you've watched my masterclass, it's all about the fit. So yes, definitely, we are still supporting families to find places for 2024. Um, but if you're feeling a little bit frustrated and potentially a little bit desperate, I would say that if you absolutely don't have to move this year, if you could sit back and wait for one more year, then do that. If not, give me a call. I'd be happy to talk you through it. I hope that answers your questions. Oh, that was hi, Elena. Okay, hi, Sophia. Um, I don't know. I can recap on sort of the general concept of when HKIS and other similar schools will start to call those who are on the wait list. Now, they've already started. So I'm going to presume that you're in the wait list for the 2024-2025 academic year. I don't know which grade you're waiting for. The chances obviously get slimmer the longer that you go on. You know, as we get into June and July, there's less chance that people will leave last minute, and there's just less chance. But they've already started. All of the schools are continuously calling students in the wait list. So as soon as they have a vacancy, they will look to the wait list and they will start to pick. They will start to select a similarly profiled child to fill the vacancy that's been left. So sometimes it just comes down to gender. You know, they need more girls. Quite a lot of schools need more girls. You know, I hope that answers your question, Sophia. There's not really much you can do. It depends what grade. And it depends when the last time that you were in contact with the admissions officer office. You know, don't underestimate. There's a delicate balance. I've said this so many times. There's a very delicate balance between being enthusiastic and being annoying. But you absolutely do have the right to call up at a reasonable intervals to inquire about the status of your application. I hope that. Oh, it's R2, Sophia. Yeah, were you also in the wait list for R1? Did it roll over? I mean, it has to be said that schools, they don't exactly penalise parents for not having applied at the entry point, but they would prioritise other students who did. Does that make sense? So HKIS have R1 and R2. R1 is 4 years old and R2 is 5 years old. If you did apply for R1 and you are now again in the waitlist for R2, you do have a slight advantage over those parents who didn't bother to apply for R1 or just didn't for whatever reason. Maybe they weren't here. So that those parents do have a slight advantage. Okay, let me go back to any other questions. So I'm scrolling through. I think I'm getting the same question a few times. Oh, hi, Eleanor. Hi. I hope that helped. Oh, you do need the spot for this year. All of the schools you mentioned may or may not have spots. The trouble is, as a parent, calling up the schools, calling the admissions office, you've often got some quite junior people who are answering the phone, and all they'll say to you is just put in a nation. Obviously, we do it a different way. I would never recommend that a parent puts in an application unless I'm reasonably optimistic that there is a place. If you are doing it on your own, I understand that that can be frustrating. You can definitely try asking them, but I think what you're doing, Eleanor, you're looking at names of schools, and I don't know why you've picked those schools, because Korean and DSC and ESF, they're so different. They are so very different. They all have in common, I think, is a very reasonable fee level. Maybe that's why you're choosing those schools, but there are other schools as well, and depending on where you live. So what you might be looking at doing is, yeah, I understand that you need the spot for the upcoming academic year, and I presume you need it for year 2. Do you need it for year 2, grade 1? Because if you need it for year 1, that's actually the equivalent of K3, or maybe you need it for up. Maybe you've got older children, upper primary or even secondary. So, send me a message. I'd be very happy to help you out. Yeah. So let's see. Do you have any other questions for me about Hong Kong international schools, international style of schools, UK independent schools, or anything else at all? Here we go. Year 2 for US, year 3 UK. That's grade 2 for US, and it's year 3 for the UK. Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, it's not easy. So maybe you can, if you go to topschoolsadmissions.com, have you watched my masterclass? That will give you an insight into how we work. If you'd like to work with me, book a call, and I'd be happy to do that. As I say, we've got families coming in from all sorts of places: Canada, US, UK, Spain, Portugal, mainland China, of course. Have you been reading the news this week? Have you been reading the news about the diminishing diversity? I wrote an article on this in 2013, something like that. And so it's interesting now that the mainland families, those who are coming in on the top talent scheme, many of the schools are actually giving them priority. And then when they enroll in the school, the PRC passport is considered foreign for the purposes of the Education Bureau counting how many foreign students the school enrolls. Bizarre, but true. And in the past, the schools have tried to keep a cap on that sort of internally, because of course the most common question that I'm being asked, one of the most common questions I'm being asked, is what does the diversity look like in the school? And I think we can all tell that across all of the schools, the diversity is diminishing. Now, somebody pulled me up on this last week, and they said, Ruth, there's actually more to diversity than race. And this is very true. This is a very, very good point. So most of us, when we're looking at diversity in international schools, what we want to go into a classroom of 25 students and see maybe half of them look like they're ethnically Chinese and maybe the other half don't. That's not going to happen very often, not in 2024 and 2025. So then I think what we need to do is look beyond the ethnicity. Okay, racially, these children are Chinese, but then beyond that, where are their parents from? What languages do they speak at home? What do they do? What's their background? Where have these children been to school before? What other, qualities, and what's in to make up their whole family profile, if you like. So I thought that was a very interesting point, and I slapped myself on the wrists for obviously thinking of the obvious and jumping to conclusions. But it is true that the diversity is very, very much diminishing. This is something that we are all going to notice more and more. Some of the schools that have focused too much on expats in the past has been to their detriment, and we all know, I know that you can't run a school, you cannot sustain a healthy enrollment when you focus on expats, non-Chinese expats, because Chinese mainlanders don't get called expats, right? So that's my little bit on diversity. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Hi, Connie. What are my views? Oh, now, do you really want to know my views? Do you want to pick the best school for your family, or do you want to go to the one that's got the shorter wait list? They're not the same thing. They might not be the same thing. So it gives me like an insight into how you might be thinking. Okay, ESF secondary, there's lots of them. There's 5 of them, I think, at the moment. And there's only one of Malvern. So the trouble is, if you've already applied to ESF secondary, you've already stipulated your choices. Again, somebody asked me about this the other day. Why did I stipulate 4 choices for ESF when I'm really stuck with my first choice? And you kind of really are. You must put down your choices, must give this great thought and consideration as to what your choices are. Had a family last week. We decided we're just going to put down one choice. That's it. And we left 2, 3, and 4 completely and utterly blank. Only put down a second, a third, and a fourth choice if you would consider going to the school. The same thing applies. I've got a module that I'm working on called Apply to Accept. You know, the number of times the parents said, we have an offer at this school, but we don't really want to go there. What should we do? Then you should not have applied. Okay. So have you already applied, Connie, or are you considering applying? The waiting list is a bit of a notional abstract concept because they are basically waiting pools. So all these kids are swimming around in the pool. You've got 2 pools, at least 2 pools. Let's say you've got 3 for now. You've got your priority pool. So all of those children who are debenture holders, siblings, alum, children of teachers, and maybe some of the schools have other priority categories as well. So they will consider their priority students first. Then they will consider, and foreign passport would be one of the priorities. It's a lower priority, but it's definitely a priority over a local passport. And as we've just discussed, a mainland passport is advantageous over a Hong Kong local passport. So you're considering, Connie. Well, why are you considering only these 2? I mean, we would say 3. And out of the ESF secondaries, which one or 2 are you considering? They're just different. They are so very different. Secondary school is interesting. So speaking as an old lady now, my children one's graduating this year and the other one next year, and they started off all the way through the Hong Kong system until they went to the UK. But secondary school is so very different to primary. And I was just having this chat with my colleague this morning. So different. Secondary schools in Hong Kong, and your secondary aged child is going to have an awful lot more to say about where they would like to go to school, you would know what they're good at, what they're not good at. What kind of environment do you want for your child? And honestly, Malvern and ESF, so different. All right, a couple of key differences, because I know you're going to ask me, how are they different? They're different in their culture in so many different ways, but let me give you a few factual differences. Now I'm struggling. Malvern is IB without GCSEs. Most of the ESF schools put the GCSEs in curriculum-wise, and then Malvern has the NYP EBAC, which ESF does not have. So curriculum-wise, there are some differences there. And when you are looking at a school for secondary, I would say you need to go beyond the curriculum. You need to look into the subject choices. We've had a spate of, we've had a few families where, they consider that the science is not strong enough. There's not... Anyway, you need to look into the subject choices of the school that you're considering for your child. So most children tend to veer towards being humanities, strong on humanities or strong on science, although the IB requires both. But you're going to want to look into it. Do they offer the language choices that you're looking for at the right level, and all of that? So look into the curriculum. There are key differences between Malvern and secondary in terms of the curriculum and in terms of the way it is delivered. What are the differences? The culture. I mean, ESF is a homegrown Hong Kong organisation. It's obviously evolved a great deal since 1968 when it was established. I think that's correct. And Malvern's a relatively new school, but Malvern has a distinctly British underpinning the culture is a British culture because that's their heritage. So the school is over 200 and something years, if not much more, from the UK. And the school in Hong Kong is not. I think it's around 7 or 8 years old. You're going to have to go to the schools, Connie, and do your due diligence. I've got reams of material that we go through with my clients, on what to look for, what to ask. You're considering both of the schools. That's good. You've not yet applied. Why are you considering them? Go back a step. And scratch the names of the schools. What do you want in a school for your child? What do you want in terms of the curriculum, the culture and the community, the diversity, the facilities, the distance, the fees? Do you want the school to prioritize academics or a very good balance of academics and pastoral care? Do you want the school to feel nurturing, above? There are so many different characteristics of school. Look into the teachers. How happy are the teachers? How well remunerated are the teachers? How long do they stay? How qualified are they? I could go on. You've asked me a follow-up question, Connie. You applied for Bradbury for Year 5 foreign passport holder at upper range. Upper range, less than 10? Maybe. I mean, and if maybe not September, then maybe January. Maybe next Easter. So if you did get into Bradbury, then you have priority to flow all the way through to ESF secondary, of course. So I hope that helps, Connie. You're very, very welcome. Thank you. Oh, you're good today. I like it. So does anyone have any other questions about Hong Kong international style schools? And I meant to show this one. Thank you, Connie. You're welcome. I aim to please. So thanks, Connie. Thanks, Eleanor and Sophia, for your questions. Does anyone have anything else to ask me about international style schools in Hong Kong? What's been going on this week? We got some good news for families coming in. They're going to ESF, actually, that particular family. And then what else? I think all of the waitlist families are kind of just waiting. Some of them have the luxury to be able to roll on to next year. So we are super busy. Tonight, I've got a session for my community on the HKIS applications. Sorry, my cat causing havoc. If you're interested in applying to HKIS for 2025, applications are open. Don't panic. But the system's working well. I was in touch with IT yesterday and there were a few glitches, but it all looks to be up and running. So you need to submit your pre-registration that they need to approve to then open up the full registration for you. So that's a little bit earlier this year. And I'm glad of it because the HKIS application is a bit of a beast. If you don't know, you have to answer, I think it's 6 questions with 4,000 characters. And do you know what? That exercise in itself, I feel like, who was the lady that was asking? Connie, if you're asking about Malvern or ESF, some of the questions that the HKIS application asks about your family values and how do your family values complement the school's vision and mission? Ask yourself that. Do you know really what these schools stand for? Do they resonate with your family? Do they resonate with you as a parent? Is this genuinely what you want for your children? And that will help you to refine your choices. I think the HKIS family questionnaire is a great exercise to go through. even if you're not going to apply, you don't have to. The questions, you can fill in the pre-registration and then get the questions, and do that as a really interesting exercise with your co-parent if you are co-parenting, because I think that will really help you to clarify your thinking around what you genuinely want in a school. Because I know that parents tend to jump to names of schools. What about this one? What about that one? What about the other one? I really do encourage you to rewind a little bit and try and empty your head from the names of schools, what you think you know about schools, because don't forget, what you think you know is not necessarily fact. And go through, understand what you want for your children as a family. Okay. More questions about ESF. What is the obsession with ESF? Please help me to understand. I don't know if they offer, I don't know off the top of my head, Valerie. Sorry, which ones offer sports scholarships and which ones do I recommend for sporty kids? Well, there's an indication that those schools that have got the best facilities would be able to support sports more than the schools without facilities. I think that's definitely true, because they do the circuit, right? So they would host away games. The other schools would travel to their pitch to do, to play football or basketball or whatever it is. So that's one aspect. But ask them, ask the schools. And look, I have a sporty kid, but I wouldn't want to choose a sporty school at the expense of everything else. And I don't think you would too. So sports would definitely be part of the conversation that you're having with schools. You can also do an awful lot of digging on the internet to find out what their fixtures are. You can see what schools have entered teams for which sports at which age groups. Now, having said that, Hong Kong is small, and a lot of the sports are done better outside of school. So a lot of the sporty kids, they go through the motions and they play football for their school, but actually it's not that great. They also play football at a higher level for their club. I'm just using football as an example. So I think, Valerie, thank you for your question. And I don't mean to be evasive, but I wouldn't recommend a school just because it's good at sports. And ESF is generally known to be good at sports. It would depend on which sport, slightly, but it would also depend on everything else about your child and what you're looking for in a school. But those schools that have got the biggest and the best facilities, you could generally assume that they have decent sports, and they do. HKIS, Canadian, Harrow, ISF. Those are the schools with a huge, big campus facilities. Some of the newer schools might be a little bit less mature in terms of building out their sports teams. Do you know what? Diversity is going to have a big impact on this, because there are going to be certain sports that emerge to be more popular than others because of the cultural bias towards swimming, fencing, tennis, maybe a little bit tennis, but swimming, table tennis, right? So these are the sports that are generally, very popular with Chinese families. So it'll be interesting to see, but I hope that answers your question, Barry. Okay, I've got another one. Haven't read it yet. Okie doke. Yeah. How do I say your name? I want to say it like the Italian way, but I don't think it is. Juan. Juan, my child you're waiting for ESF. You cannot rely on one school. I hope you do not have all of your eggs in one basket. Please tell me that you have options. Yes, what does yes mean? I hope you have options. Yes, 6 months while it remains valid. So that means your child has sat the assessment, passed the assessment, and is in what we call the successful wait list. I don't know which ESF you've applied to. I don't know your child. I don't know your profile. I don't know whether there's a chance for him or her to get a seat. I would suggest you look at other options, or you can settle down, wait one more year. Can you do that? Yeah, it's always really, it's always, quite sad when I speak with parents. I hope that you should have applied to three. So my whole thing, my process is, apologies if you've heard this before, but, apply to three schools. Apply to three schools, apply to accept three schools that you would be happy to put your child into. Now, within the three, I understand that most parents have a first choice, and that's understandable. But sometimes it becomes apparent that the first choice is just out of reach. Yeah, okay, you should apply to more schools. If your child needs that spot in 2024 and you are without a spot and it is May the 9th, either give me a call or apply to more schools. But which schools do you apply to? How do you know which ones are a good fit? How do you know which ones have space? Three, apply to three. I just don't think it's wise at the moment to be relying on ESF. Now, having said that, I always feel a little bit bad because what I'm doing is risk management, right? I'm in the business of risk management. So, but having said that, you could go ahead tomorrow and apply to three more schools, and then ESF call you in June, and none of us will know that, but hopefully that would still be a positive outcome if that happens. So what was I saying? I can't remember what I was saying, but I've been waffling on now for about 34 minutes. So thank you for all your questions. Last chance. Does anyone have any more questions? I do this every Thursday, almost every Thursday. I got waylaid last week and I had to cancel, but nobody noticed. It's all right. No one was angry. No one messaged me. If you've got questions throughout the week, you can pop them in under the event that we create. As soon as I finish tonight, we create next week. Oh, next week, not me alone. I'll be meeting, actually, it's not next week, 23rd of May. I'll be having a chat with Tony Darby of Rugby School in Japan. He asked about schools that are good at sports. Boy, are they good at sports. So join me for that. If you haven't considered sending your child, here's a funny thing, right? Here's something that we're doing quite a lot of work with some really interesting schools all around the world. All around in Asia. We've always had this long tradition. Hong Kong is an ex-British colony, and we've always had this long tradition. The civil servants used to, or even still do, get an allowance to send their children to a British boarding school in England, Scotland, Wales, or Ireland, which is nuts, but at least they used to until very recently. I'm not sure if they still do. And that's because I suppose there's a legacy, there's a history there with Hong Kong and the UK. And of course, the UK style of education it's got a lot of good things, a lot of benefits. But there are UK style schools in Hong Kong. There's one boarding school in Hong Kong, which is Harrow, but there are more and more UK-style boarding schools opening in Thailand, Malaysia, and Rugby. And I think they're great options, if you don't want to send your child all the way to the UK and you want to be closer. So tune in. We're having a chat with Rugby School Japan next week, 23rd. All right, this will be the last one. Hi, Cynthia. It's not an international school, isn't it? It is. Pretty sure that it is. Now, you know what? It depends. I think they actually truly are an international school, but I know that some parents are confused because I've been talking about whether or not a school is international. And I don't know if you've noticed, but recently I've started to say international style school. Does it matter if it's international? Does it? Not really. It offers IB, PYP. What is my view? It's a small school. It's a community school. It's got a really sweet campus. Not big, not fancy. It's not expensive. If that sounds like a good fit for you, go take a look. Or maybe you're further along in the process for that. I was involved in setting up this school, and so the principal is back. He went away, tried to retire, and came back. So the principal knows this school. I guess he's not staying on for long. We always look at the leadership of the school. That's a really interesting. If you follow our stuff, I'll always be posting about who's retiring, who's leaving, who's coming. It's a little bit of a musical chairs of principals in Hong Kong and Asia. A lot of the a lot of the principals or a lot of the senior teachers that leave, they come back. There's a habit of that. So Cynthia, I think, if some of those things that I said about the school, if they appeal to you, you must go and have a look and see if you feel it here. Okay. You're asking me about what do I think about a school. Well, actually, at the end of the day, what I think doesn't matter. It's what you think that matters. And when you go to a school and you look around, and you must see the school in session, you must see the children and hear them and see their interactions with each other and their interactions with the teachers and the principal, and you get a feeling, right? And if you feel it, go for it. You've got to get a positive feeling. And if you're not feeling it, be honest with yourselves and choose a different school. Because if you're not feeling it when you go for the visit, then probably it's not a good fit. So thank you for your questions, Cynthia. You're very welcome. Marta, Juan, Valerie, Connie, Elena, and Sophia. Thanks for all of your questions, guys. I'll be back on here next week at 6 p.m. barring any disasters. If you have any questions during the week, you can actually post them under the event for next week, and I'll also get to them. If you're watching this on replay and you have any questions that you would like to ask me, I'm also very what's the word? I just don't have an off switch basically. So I will see your questions and I will get to them. So thank you. Have a lovely rest of the evening and rest of the week. I've been Ruth from Top Schools, and I'll see you next week. Good night. Bye-bye.